Welcome to Walking with Jesus. This is episode 70. Today we're going to be taking a look at Mark chapter 14, verses 43 through 52. Our topic for today is Jesus is arrested. All right, let's dive right in. And immediately, even as Jesus said this, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent by the leading priests, the teachers of religious law, and the elders. The traitor, Judas, had given them a prearranged signal. You will know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss. Then you can take him away under guard. As soon as they arrived, Judas walked up to Jesus. Rabbi, he exclaimed, and gave him the kiss. Then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. But one of the men with Jesus pulled out his sword and struck the high priest's slave, slashing off his ear. Jesus asked them, Am I some dangerous revolutionary that you have come with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there among you teaching every day. But these things are happening to fulfill what the scriptures say about me. Then all of his disciples deserted him and ran away. One young man following behind was clothed only in a long linen shirt. When the mob tried to grab him, he slipped out of his shirt and he ran away naked. So, if you remember from yesterday's episode, Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he was praying. And he was praying a very specific prayer, asking that the Father would allow this cup of suffering to pass from him. But ultimately, Jesus asked that God's will would be done. Well, in between his times of prayer, he was going back and talking to the disciples, warning them that they needed to stay awake and pray so that they would not fall into temptation. Because he said, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Well, it's now time for his betrayer to come, and Jesus wakes all the disciples up, and he says, they're here. And at this moment, Judas arrives, and with him is this large crowd of men, and they are all armed. They have been sent by the religious leaders. The religious leaders have been looking for a way to get rid of Jesus for some time. They tried to trick him with different questions. They sent various people to him, and they would offer him different situations and ask him publicly to give answers. And each time they did this, they were frustrated because more and more people were amazed at the answers that Jesus was able to give in his godly wisdom. And so at this point now, they were desperate. Judas comes and he offers to sell out Jesus in exchange for some money. So they have this pre-arranged sign. Judas tells them, hey, follow me. I will take you to where Jesus and his disciples are going to be gathered, and I will go up and I will kiss the one that is to be arrested. I have always found this symbol or the sign that Judas used for betrayal to be really interesting. Because this kiss, and granted, different cultures put different meaning behind a kiss, but a kiss is intimacy, right? I mean, it is close, even just a kiss on a cheek from brothers, from friends. But it is a sign of intimacy. It's a sign of relationship between two individuals. It's allowing someone into your personal space. And that's exactly what Jesus has done with Judas for the last 3.5 years. He has allowed Judas into his space in hopes that Judas's heart would be changed and transformed from the things that he was doing, the things that he was part of. I mean, it does tell us in another one of the Gospels that Judas was actually a thief, and that as the collector of their money, that from time to time as treasurer he would dip in and take some for himself. But Judas was also a part of being empowered by Jesus to cast out demons, to open up the eyes of the blind, to heal the sick, to do all kinds of miraculous work and to proclaim the gospel. Judas was a part of those things. He saw all those things. So how in the world did he get to this place where he is willing to betray Christ? Well, it was a heart issue. He never allowed the gospel to move beyond his mind into his heart. And so ultimately, Judas was never actually transformed. And I think this is a really important lesson for us, that we can be really close to the things of God and not actually be close to God. You know what I'm saying by that? Have you ever met somebody who can quote a lot of scripture? They go to church all the time. The things on the outside look really good, but then when you get close to them, or spend a lot of time around them, you begin to notice that they're mean or judgmental, maybe unforgiving or vindictive. They carry bitterness and anger with them everywhere they go. They don't treat people well. They're lousy tippers. You know, they have an attitude of arrogance or haughtiness. And you're thinking to yourself, this is a Christian? Like I'm not sure how this correlates. Like how do you spend this much time around church and yet act this way? Well, people have been doing it since the very beginning of Christianity. Here you have Judas that is so close to Jesus that he's actually able to go in and give him a kiss as a sign of greeting. And yet Judas' heart has not been transformed by the power and the love of Christ. So I think this causes us to pause for a moment and reflect on our own lives. Jesus, am I just settling for being around you? Or am I truly allowing your presence and your power to change me, to change who I am, the way that I think, the way that I speak, the way that I live? Well, Judas gives him the kiss, and immediately this crowd of men move forward and they rush in and they grab a hold of Jesus. And then one of the men, and we find out in another gospel that this is actually Peter, takes his sword and he cuts off the servant of the high priest's ear. This man's name was Malchus. Now I find this kind of ironic because up to this point, Peter has said that he will do anything to stand by Jesus, that he's not afraid even to die with Jesus. But what I see here is that he's willing to fight, but he's not willing to be obedient. You know what I mean by that? So Peter's willing to stand up for his faith, to stand up alongside of Christ, as long as it means that he has a sword in his hand and he's able to defend himself. But Jesus is actually calling him to something here that's more profoundly difficult than defending himself physically. Jesus is simply standing there and he's not resisting the evil. He's giving himself over into the hands of these sinful men so that God's will can be accomplished. God's purposes can be done. That's something Peter's not able to do. Peter can fight all day long. Peter can yell back. He can open his mouth. I mean, Peter's always quick to open his mouth and to say something. He's always got a response. He's always ready with a reaction. But you just stand there and trust God. That's not something he's able to do. And so he cuts off this high priest's ear, and we see him, or in another gospel it says that Jesus went ahead and he healed this servant's ear. And then he went on. Jesus says, "Why are you coming at me like this? You've had every opportunity to arrest me. You've had every opportunity while I was in the temple courts teaching to do this then. But the reason that you're doing it is so that the scriptures could be fulfilled." In other words, God had a bigger plan than what you had. You guys wanted to come out and do this in the dark of night. You wanted to come out and do this undercover when nobody else would see it, when nobody else was around to know that you were doing it. And how many times is our rebellion against God done in that same way? We allow ourselves to get isolated. We allow ourselves to get separated from the group. We stop going to church. We stop being around other believers. And we do that because we want to do our deeds in darkness, when other people can't see us, when other people can't be aware of what's going on behind closed doors. Or sometimes it's just the things in our minds and our thoughts, the thought life we allow ourselves to entertain, and then it turns our heart to stone and our stomachs to acid, and we become these angry, vengeful, frustrated people because we've separated ourselves from the goodness and the presence of the light, and we've allowed ourselves to live in this place of darkness. Well, right after this, it says that all of the disciples scatter. So this is a big change. Peter goes from flinging around his sword to running and hiding. And it's not just Peter, and not just John and James and Andrew. It's all of the disciples. And I'm willing to bet there were more than just the 12 there. They all run off in fear for their lives. And you know what? You're not getting any judgment from me here, because I'm not going to say that I think I would have done anything different. One thing I do want to point out, though, is that it gives us a really interesting piece of information, an interesting detail. It says that there's a young man following who was only clothed in a long linen shirt, and that when they grabbed a hold of his shirt, he got away because they ripped the shirt off and he took off naked. Now, it's believed that the young man being talked about in this story is a young man named John Mark. John Mark went on to become a pretty well-known disciple of Christ after Jesus' death and resurrection. He was actually the student of the Apostle Peter. I think he's named by Paul in one of his writings. But John Mark is actually the author of the Gospel of Mark. So if this is true, I want you to think about what it means for us. The man who wrote this gospel, considered by many to be the first gospel written maybe as soon as 20 to 25 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus. And it was the gospel that much of Matthew and Luke based their writings upon later on. The man who wrote this gospel was there when Jesus was arrested and was one of those who ran away in fear. So if he ran away in fear, but he also wrote the Gospel of Mark, that means that Jesus is incredibly forgiving, merciful, and gracious. Because not only was John Mark accepted back in as a follower of Christ, he was entrusted with writing one of the 4 Gospels, possibly the first Gospel written. And it's through these Gospels that millions, billions of people have come to faith and knowledge of Jesus Christ. So let me say this to you. Just because you have ran away in the past, or maybe you are in the process of running away right now, don't believe for a second that Jesus is done with you, because he's not. If you will turn around, confess your sin, and turn back to God, you'll find that no matter how far and how long you have run, Jesus will be standing right there directly in front of you. There's nowhere that you can go to escape his goodness. There's no depths that you can sink to escape his love. Jesus will always be there. And if you will allow him, he will use your life for his glory. Will you pray with me? Jesus, we thank you for the amazing example that you have given to us in your life, in your ministry, and even in your death. Lord, help us. Help us to stay in the light. Help us, Lord, not to be drawn into the darkness. And help us, Lord Jesus, not to settle for just being close to you. Lord, we want to be changed by you. We want to become like you. And Lord, if we are in a season like Mark, where we've been running, help us to stop, to turn back, and to look to you again as our hope and our source of life and our future. Because that's what you are. Jesus, we love you. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, I hope God's word has spoken to you.